cradle of civilization and crossroads of culture. From urban Cairo to the desert wilderness of the Sinai Peninsula, professional mountain biker Hans Ray follows in the footsteps of pharaohs and prophets as he retraces Moses' exodus to the summit of Mount Sinai and discovers a promised land of mountain biking trails and trials in Egypt. To travel in Egypt is to journey through history itself. So many of its secrets remain buried beneath the shifting sands, encrypted in legends and sealed in the chambers of inexplicable monuments. It is both history and mystery that brought world champion mountain biker Hans Ray to Egypt.
I've always been intrigued by ancient civilizations and their mysteries. Through my mountain biking career, I've had the opportunity to visit many of the world's most impressive archaeological sites. From the pyramids of Central America and China, to the hilltop temples of Machu Picchu or the Step Pyramid in Saqqara. And they always leave me wondering the same thing: who built them and why? I'd come to Egypt mainly to ride my bike, but also hoping to satisfy my own ongoing quest for an answer to these questions.
That's it, the famous Step Pyramid in Saqqara. Made out of bricks. Very nice.
After years of competition and many world championship titles, Hans now focuses on his two greatest passions: new riding challenges and adventure travel. These exotic cycling adventures enable Hans to travel the world and share his amazing abilities with everyone he meets. No trip to Egypt is complete without a visit to one of the true wonders of the world, the Great Pyramids and Sphinx at Giza, just outside of Cairo. Hans began his Egyptian mountain bike exodus here, along with cycling companion, photographer, and good friend, Bill Freeman.
Okay, when you lean in, let me pre-focus on you. Working with good people, you can't shoot a bad picture. People are really showing their stuff. If you're there when it's happening, you're gonna do all right.
Here we are.
Cairo is one of the world's oldest and most fascinating cities.
Good luck charms. So the pharaohs won't put a curse on me. You know how that goes?
The bike is kind of your passport to a lot of places. It opens you doors wherever you go, and people are receptive to it, and they can understand it, and they actually like it. I like to perform, and it's satisfying to put a smile on people's face, you know. That's what it's all about, I guess. You have to be somewhat of a showman, I guess.
Izzat Abdelmagid is Hans's guide for this adventure. Izzat has traded his professional career as a commercial architect in urban Cairo for a simpler life as a mountain bike tour guide in the Sinai.
What do you think, Izzat? I look like an alien, huh?
Like a genie.
Wow, what are you smoking?
Smoking, yes.
Ah, not for me.
Tobacco.
Tobacco?
See what? Just make you happy.
I like your palm.
Yes. Make you happy.
Yeah, makes me happy. I'm up for happiness.
Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Leaving the chaos of Cairo behind them, the team entered the Sinai Peninsula. Their expedition route would roughly follow the 40-year biblical wanderings of Moses and the children of Israel, through the rugged wilderness to the top of Mount Sinai, and ultimately to the Red Sea.
We're kind of tracing Moses' footsteps from the old turquoise temples to some of these beautiful canyons all the way to Mount Sinai, where God gave him the 10 Commandments, and then back over to the other side to the Red Sea. We couldn't cover much distance across the desert on our bikes. The soft sand, twisting canyons and 100-degree temperatures made it really challenging.
The environment here is really varied. Everything from these wide canyons with sandy washes, big steps, slick rock everywhere, and really rough rock. There's so much room out here. It's really awesome.
We stopped below a shady cliff for a rest, and Ascent pointed out that we weren't the first ones to do so.
It's originally, how did you say it? Originally letters of Arabic letters. Well,
Can you read it?
what I can read is only one word. Those. We start from right to left. F, like F, for example, like L, like Arabic L. And here, it looks like 6. Yeah? So,
Number 6?
number 6, I mean, yeah?
Yeah.
SLM. Salam, Shalom, Frieden, Peace.
I can read one word too.
Which one?
This one right here means camel.
No, it means a dromedary. Because it's only one ham. Yeah?
In the course of the expedition through the Sinai, several mountains were to be surmounted. And to Hans, these represented not obstacles, but new challenges.
Now, ladies and gentlemen,
Hans's skills are a combination of physical technique and complete mental concentration.
Usually on my adventure trips I'm looking for trails which were sort of being unrideable or have never been ridden before. And it doesn't have to be 100% that way, but I like to find maybe 30% of the trails should be really hardcore trails which wouldn't be really fun for the regular mountain biker to ride on, or which would be just a very big challenge.
Hans doesn't get sketched by exposure. His intuition's really good, and he follows that intuition. He enjoys pushing it too.
I try to look at a landscape like an artist and complement what I see with my riding. Mountain biking is in many ways very similar to skiing. It has different disciplines. We have the downhill racing, the slalom, we have the cross-country racing, which is more like the endurance part of it, and then the trials riding, and those are the guys who jump over rocks and logs and all kinds of obstacles, and you're never supposed to put your foot on the ground. And that's kind of my specialty, that's where I come from. And after doing it for so many years, I look at the world as one big obstacle. Come on, Ascent. We don't have 40 years like Moses.
It's hard to believe there's a temple up here.
I bet it's pretty spectacular judging by the rest of the scenery here.
Whew. This is nice. I was blown away to find this temple here on top of this remote mountain. Ascent told me that at the height of its glory, the Egyptian Empire extended well into Africa, Asia, and part of the Mediterranean.
I mean the same hand. All the letters are the same.
Yeah, it's from the Middle Kingdom, I read. From the Temple of the Lady of Turquoise.
Here in the Sinai, miners toiled to extract turquoise and other precious tribute that would ultimately end up buried again in the tomb of some Egyptian pharaoh.
And look what it says here.
Stay tuned, we'll be right back with more biking action from Egypt.
While Moses wandered for 40 years in the Sinai wilderness, Hans Ray and his fellow mountain bike pilgrims had been underway for only a few days, but they were already beginning to understand the awesome scope of Moses' journey and the incredible isolation of the desert.
I was ready for the physical demands of this trip, the long distances, hard terrain, and hot sun. But what surprised me was how mentally demanding it turned out to be. Hours of intense concentration on technical downhills left us all exhausted by day's end. But you can't afford to let your guard down, because even a small mistake could lead to a big problem. It takes a lot of concentration and focus to do these really tricky moves and stuff. You have to be focused, you have to know what you do, how you're gonna do it, and you gotta know your limits. It's very important, you know. Sometimes when things don't feel right, you gotta say no, you know. Otherwise, it's gonna be a bad situation, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere. Landed a little sideways on a rock slab and popped my tire off. I hope I didn't bend my rim. Gotta put the tire on first, and then you can see it right here from the landing. That would be a bummer. That stuff happens sometimes. That's why you bring a spare tube. But this time I don't even need the tube. Just need to let the air out, put the tire bag on, and pump it up. Now comes the moment of truth. Didn't bend the rim. My biggest concern on an adventure like this is not just that I might crash. That's always the risk in technical riding. But if I do and it goes badly, there's no medical help close at hand. Worse yet, when you are miles from the nearest road, a broken leg or even a broken rim could turn what would be a routine accident at home into a serious life or death situation in the desert. You weren't kidding, Ascent. There's some steep drops.
Theoretically it's possible, but practically I'm wimping out.
I'm a long way from the South Laguna Hospital. I think the emergency helicopter wouldn't even make it that far.
The team finally emerged from the desert and arrived at the Wadi El Firan oasis. This oasis has been a welcome sight for countless generations of nomadic travelers, offering the promise of shelter, water, and human contact. The team would rest overnight here in preparation for the next leg of their Egyptian exodus.
The key to riding safe is to know your limits. You have to be committed, because if you hesitate too much or pull back, you can get into trouble. Ascent had never seen a full suspension mountain bike, nor had he ridden on a real single trail before, so it was all pretty intimidating for him. But he was determined to keep trying, and I was determined to help him become a better rider.
Here's the lesson of the day. Just remember always to be flexible, you know, with your arms and legs, feel the ground, you know.
Okay.
Even with your full suspension bike, your body is still the best suspension.
Yeah, okay.
You know, it's like riding it downhill, it's like a video game. You have to always decide in a split second, do I go left, right, over this, you know?
Almost quickly.
Yeah, it's like you have to think very quickly.
Okay.
And as more techniques you know, as more possibilities you have.
Right here.
Power is just power!
The next leg of their journey would take the team over a mountain pass called Abbas Pasha Mountain. The Bedouins carried their supplies using the more traditional means of travel, albeit with modern conveniences, while Hans, Bill, and Ascent labored to ride the difficult ascent on their bikes.
It's quite a challenge riding in the desert, just because it's so dry and hot, and sometimes the ground is very soft sand, and it makes it, even if you can ride it, it's hard riding, and it's definitely a workout, you know. You get so worn out from the hot sun, you know, you have to kind of rest in the middle of the day to stay in the shade a little bit and try to ride early and late. But it's definitely a challenge in its own to just ride your bike out in these conditions.
You're challenged with every kind of terrain that you can imagine out here. It's a great playground for mountain biking. It's a great place for exploring, and the two together work very well.
A dizzying switchback trail ascended from the desert valley, while midday temperatures exceeded 100 degrees. But Hans and Bill knew that the effort would pay off.
Wherever there's a hard uphill, there's usually a sweet downhill.
Camel tracks actually made great downhills because all the centuries of foot traffic had carved these super well-defined trails into the mountainside. But they were steep and twisty enough to keep it interesting and fun. One of the descents of Abbas Pasha Mountain had about 100 hairpin switchbacks. It started off really tight and technical at the top, then as we got closer to the bottom they opened up and we could put on some speed. Mountain bike technology has come a long way in the last few years. Full suspension bikes these days give you a smooth enough ride to maintain control and prevent your body from taking too much of a beating.
At least you could have got to cool off a little.
I could go for a swim right now.
In the middle of this super dry and lifeless desert were these valleys with freshwater springs, little walled gardens full of fruit trees and fresh herbs. Ascent said it was paradise, and it really was. along the creek bed were these smooth boulders, just perfect for trials.
Little hibbledy-hop trials action back there. Let's rest here for a bit.
Picked the wrong line.
Let's do a little trials riding here, Bill. This looks cool.
I've been doing trials for 23 years. To me, the world looks like one big obstacle to conquer. Usually I'm fairly exposed to injury when I'm doing trials, especially when it's high up on a rock or something. I use a hardtail bike for better control and flat pedals so my feet aren't clipped in if I crash. I know my bike and I know my limits, but the terrain is always different, so I have to calculate every new move. I try to work up the big moves in my head first, but at some point you just have to go for it.
Trials riding in the Sinai Peninsula.
All kinds of exotic trade goods and many religious ideologies have passed through the Sinai over the centuries. Yet for the native Bedouin people, little has changed. Throughout their adventure, Hans Ray and his companions camped with the Bedouins and had the opportunity to learn more about their customs.
One of the most memorable things along this trip was interacting with the local Bedouins and having fun with the children, letting them ride the bikes. And the people are really nice, the Bedouins. They're very humble, down-to-earth people, but they know what it's all about. Zad does not only know the terrain and the trails around here, he also knows all the locals. He's friends with all of them, he speaks their language, and he considers himself at least half a Bedouin. He doesn't like to be in the city, and you can tell that.
Hey, Zad, let's follow these tire marks.
Which kind of...
We found the sea to show my bike.
Assalamu alaikum. القوة.
Be careful with the fingers. Tell him to push the button.
دوس هنا هون دوس هنا. دوس هنا.
Stop! The wild camel doesn't stop.
Apart from the promise of good riding, Hans had been drawn to Egypt by the mysteries of the pyramids. He had studied much of the archaeological literature and religious texts, as well as the more controversial theories suggesting that supernatural, or perhaps extraterrestrial influences, had inspired the Egyptians to build the fantastic monuments.
It's a quite interesting story that a lot of these old writings and things in the Bible can be looked at with modern eyes and with modern technology, and they all of a sudden make much more sense than some of these biblical fairy tales, you know. So, who knows?
In addition to all that has been written about the pyramids' mystical powers, there are convincing arguments suggesting that there must be more to the story than modern archaeology alone has been able to explain. Whatever the facts, clearly we have yet to understand all of Egypt's ancient mysteries.
Not even the experts know everything about the Great Pyramid of Cheops, and we, the public, know even less. In spite of all our efforts to dig and measure and x-ray it, we still don't really know how old it is, who built it, or what it was built for in the first place. There are so many conflicting theories surrounding the pyramids that I wonder if we'll ever truly know the answers. One of the most intriguing mysteries was uncovered in 1993 by Rudolf Gantenbrink, a German engineer. He took a robot with a camera and sent it up a small tunnel one that had always been thought to be an air shaft. To everyone's astonishment, the robot stopped at a door with metal braces, the only metal ever found in the construction of the pyramids. Unbelievably, to this day the door has not been opened, or the public has not been informed of its opening.
So this is the famous chamber where Kantenbrink sent up the robot, and he climbed 60 feet up to the top until it stopped at a door which had two metal handles. And apparently next year they're going to try to open this door and see what's behind it. Very exciting.
The pyramid's leading archaeological authority is Dr. Zahi Hawass.
Building the tomb, the pyramid, was a national project of everyone.
Oh, it must have been amazing.
It was the most important thing in ancient Egypt. And there is nothing about lost civilization. You know, there is no fingerprints of the gods here. The fingerprints is the fingerprints of the workmen that we discover. Have been excavating here.
Yeah.
Nothing. Only thing that you discover, hieroglyphics, tell you about the king, about the people, tombs of the workmen, bakeries for making bread. You know, all this tells us about the people and not about Atlantis and things like this. This is a myth.
The mystery of the unknown is what makes archaeology a true adventure. But even with answers, there still are new puzzles to solve. 10 days into their crossing, and deep in the most rugged and remote part of the Sinai Desert, Hans, Bill, and Ascent took a detour through the Arada Canyon. Here, sandstone sculpted smooth by centuries of wind had created a 3-mile-long maze of narrow slot canyons. Ascent warned Hans that it couldn't be ridden.
Everywhere we went, Ascent told me that the trails ahead were too steep or the rocks were too rough to ride.
What made you think I shouldn't bring my bike? It's all rideable almost.
Have you seen where we're going now?
No.
Well, you see the sun down there.
But during the trip, he'd seen enough of my riding to change his opinion about what was rideable or not. I think he led me into this canyon just to pay me back for all the times I'd ridden off his advice in the past few days. Game on, Ascent.
Okay. Just a downhill of hell.
This time the joke was definitely on me. We were already past the point of no return when I realized that Ascent was finally right.
I'm still clean.
This was one trail that was humanly impossible to ride. The bigger question was, how could a human even walk through it?
I have to turn my bars. It's too narrow. There's no way. Ascent lied to me. He said I could ride everything. I did it.
If it gets much narrower, I'll even not only have to take off my pedals, but also my arms and legs. Man, you should have warned us, is that?
Nice.
My bike's not a word.
For biking.
Don't try this at home. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. It's getting worse.
Bill?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I think we're gonna rope it down here. This guy is prepared. He's a Bedouin. This is an old Bedouin tool. About 800 years old. He got it from his grandfather, and his grandfather got it from his grandfather. And now we use it here. Right?
Very right.
Here it was clear. Get off your bike and lower it.
Bill, be careful.
Be careful, there's a Molotov cocktail in there. Yeah, inside, outside. Outside.
Okay.
This way.
I'm tired.
Alright, just pass it down. Scratch my fork, no problem. I get a new one from Box Shops when I get back.
Okay. Bill, you got it.
Ah, piece of cake, we can do that again.
Okay. But from down there.
And the winner of the limbo contest is...
Somehow I managed to get out of the canyon. I was stoked.
Well, Sad, you got me on this one. I definitely had to get off my bike a few times.
Right, yeah.
But you have to admit, I rode most of it.
You are the only one, I think. No, I don't think. I am sure. I am sure.
The object of the team's long journey was a visit to Horeb Mountain, better known as Mount Sinai, or Moses Mountain.
This is the monastery of St. Catherine. We're at the base of the foot of Mount Sinai. And this is where all the pilgrims start their pilgrimage up to Mount Sinai, the place where Moses supposedly got the 10 Commandments from God. This monastery was built in about 600 AD. And besides a really beautiful place, it looks also like a really nice place to ride some trials.
Whoa, man. You almost nailed me. All right, uno más.
Dating from the 6th century, St. Catherine's is the world's oldest Christian monastery. Within these walls are revered biblical landmarks, like the Well of Midian, the Burning Bush, and the Church of the Transfiguration.
These are all the mountain bikers who try to ride down Mount Sinai. They preserved them here to make you remember to always wear your helmet. As a matter of fact, this is all the monks who used to live here and work here over the years. After their deaths for a few years, they dig them out of the ground again and preserve their skulls here to remind you of the death. To me, this looks a lot like the Mountain Biking Hall of Fame.
The next morning, the camel caravan prepares for the steep ascent of the Holy Mountain. The trek to Mount Sinai would follow Moses' historical route from the desert floor to the 7,500-foot summit.
Okay, now.
I'd been looking forward to Mount Sinai the whole trip. I didn't really know if I'd be able to ride it, but I knew it would be worth a try.
The nice thing about this trail is it's not too steep and it's hard. Yesterday was so soft, it's so miserable out there in the desert, it was really hard to ride. We had to push a lot. So this is really nice right now.
It's really dry though, very dry. Inside of your mouth and your throat get parched pretty quick.
That was pretty cool to go up Mount Sinai just because I know people have taken their mountain bikes up there before. I've seen a few pictures before and it looked pretty technical. And once I saw the trail in person and we hiked up it, it was quite exhausting and I was like thinking first, I'm not gonna ride this down, looks pretty technical.
On the way to the peak, they would climb the Steps of Repentance, 3,000 stone stairs rising at an average angle of 45 degrees in foot-high increments.
I think they're right with 3,000 steps.
Once I got to the top, I was like saying, wait a minute, you know, there's no way I'm gonna carry my bike down this, you know. I gotta ride it.
From the famous peak where God spoke to Moses and gave him the 10 Commandments, Hans would attempt to ride his bike back down to Elijah's Basin, where the team was to camp for the night. Though multitudes of pilgrims down through the ages had made the journey before them, certainly Hans would be the first to attempt the difficult climb and descent by bicycle. Hans was thoroughly charged for the challenge ahead.
Hard to find the easy line, or a line at all. Once I started riding the first few yards, I kind of got into the flow of it. My mind was set for it and I was like, hey, I'm gonna go as fast as I could. And I knew there was some really tricky, steep sections coming up with sharp turns at the bottom, but stay focused, that's the trick.
Sinai Peak is a granite massif, falling away in vertical cliffs on all sides. The pitch was so steep and uneven that it demanded absolute mental concentration and physical control.
On a technical downhill, it's most important to focus on the ideal line, on where you want to go, not where you don't want to go. If you come at a gnarly section, you don't just look at the bottom and wonder how can I get from A to B. You just do it step by step, and before you know it, you're down there and ready for the next part. This is really technical. This is up there with the more technical ones, and we are on to a proper first descent. So far I've ridden all of it and we're over halfway down. Let's keep moving, we're losing light. Don't slow me down anymore. I scoped the trail pretty well on the hike up, and I had a fairly good idea of what to expect. I noticed one really steep part with a 90-degree left-hand turn at the bottom. I remember thinking it looked kind of unrideable, and if I didn't make that turn, I would launch straight over the edge of a cliff. By the time I reached that point, I was so pumped to have cleaned the top section, I didn't even think twice about trying it. Just gotta make that turn down there, and I'll be fine. I ended up riding the whole thing without even tripoding, and I was quite happy just because I knew that nobody had ridden it before.
I made it!
Proper first ascent, Mount Sinai. I'm stoked.
Now I know how the camels must feel. It's Hans! We made it!
Hans!
I wrote it all down, all the way.
I saw you! I saw you! Congratulations!
Stoked.
Very good. Well, very good.
Oh, this was good.
It was wonderful. It was really wonderful.
This was cool. Oh, this is good. Oh, it's gonna be nice to sleep under the sky
Under the
here,
stars, yes.
right below Mount Sinai.
On the holy mountain, yeah?
Yeah.
As sun broke over camp, the team's final leg of the journey was the ride to the Red Sea. Morning found Hans and Bill resting soundly at Elijah's basin.
It was very nice to sleep under the open sky and watch the stars, and you learn how to become a Bedouin.
After their long journey through Egypt together, Izzat and the Bedouin guides prepared breakfast for the last time.
It was really enlightening to live and travel with the Bedouin. They aren't concerned with property or material wealth, and they don't keep any more than they can pack up and carry on their camels. They are truly at home wherever they go and are totally content to live in the moment.
Fresh bread, fresh omelette, and black coffee.
Are you Wolfgang Puck?
Hey!
And that's the bike. Oh, you don't have to get up. Relax a little bit, we're not going yet. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes.
With Mount Sinai safely behind them, Bill reflected on the team's adventure.
Another one of Hans's adventures. He always puts together an unusual adventure. You never know where you're going to go. You never know what you're going to get into. But by the end of it, you're sure glad you went.
There they are, my camels. It's about the same value than a bicycle, a camel. Woo.
Good man, yeah.
Except these guys have 6 feet of suspension. I got about 6 inches. But I smoke them down the hill.
Once we reached our final goal and started heading back to civilization, we all just wanted to have fun. It felt good to have made it so far, but it was sad to think that the trip would soon be over. I was proud of the progress Izzat had made, and I was glad to see that he had learned something from us as well.
You're not allowed to walk here, you gotta ride this piece.
See, that's the test, don't fire you. Go down.
You're doing better, Izzat. Right on.
Practice makes perfect. I'm doing better now, I think.
I came to Egypt looking for answers to mysteries, and we found out a lot, but most importantly I experienced some great riding, to cross the Sinai Desert on a mountain bike and to make a lot of new friends, something I will never forget and cherish for the rest of my life.
For 14 days and 14 nights in the wilderness, the team followed in Moses' footsteps, through hundreds of miles of challenging desert, all the way to Mount Sinai. And finally, their ultimate destination, the shores of the Red Sea.
And we are stoked!
Woo! Woo! Last bit of sand. I hope I don't get a flat right now. Man, we gotta turn around and do it again. I'm going in the water right now.